I'm Kathy Adams Clark. I have been leading tours through Strabo Tours since 2004. And I have been visiting Costa since 2004, and I've been visiting Costa Rica since 2004, taking groups or doing my own personal tours. To tell you a little bit about Strabo Photo Tour Collection, just in case you don't know them, Jackie from Strabo has been in the travel industry for a good 30 plus years, so she's got plenty of experience. Strabo is a small tour group. We don't do large tours. It's only very small groups, usually about anywhere from 10 to 12 is the maximum. We do stay in boutique hotels. And by boutique hotels, I mean hotels that you might not have found just in your regular research. And I'll tell a story on Pat Sheets, who's here this evening, that one time we drove up to our hotel in Costa Rica in the van, and Pat yelled out from the back of the bus, "Now, this is a Strabo hotel." So Strabo hotels are kind of known for being really kind of neat and small. Sometimes we are the only group in the hotel because it might only take 10 guests or 8 guests. Strabo does go to international destinations, Asia, all the way through around the world. And one of the beautiful things about Strabo tours is we do use local guides. And some of these local guides, like Ishmael in Morocco and Connie in Western Ireland, we've used them for years, Willie in Costa Rica. So these guides know Strabo tours as well as they know the local scenery and the local culture. And then we have a photography guide, of course, that goes along. That's me. Karen Schulman's here with Jeb as photo guides. And then Strabo also does different types of trips, like watercolor trips and painting trips as well. And so it's not just photo tours, just in case you've got anybody who might like to do something like that. And then they also will coordinate a friend or family trip for you. So if you think after seeing Costa Rica tonight that, whoa, I'd like to take the family and the grandkids to Costa Rica, if you've got a group, 6 people, 8 people, 10 people, 12 people, then Strabo could also coordinate that tour for you so that you don't have to do all the arrangements on that. And then, of course, the website is www.strabotours.com. History of Costa Rica. Let's talk about Costa Rica. The history of Costa Rica. Costa Rica has never been conquered. What happened when Christopher Columbus stopped by Costa Rica back in that 1492 is he looked at it and he reported back to Spain that there wasn't anything there to look at. Didn't have any gold to speak of. And so they just kept right on going. So it was colonized by farmers with small tracts of land, starting in the beginning with coffee, where coffee plants were distributed to the people who were there. And then they developed a co-op to send the coffee back to Spain. So it has been founded with the mindset of sort of that we're all in this together, a socialist type mentality, as opposed to the United States is that pull them up by your bootstraps, that we always talk about. Costa Rica's got more of that familiar attitude to it. And there is free and compulsory education throughout the country. They do have democratic elections. And one of the treats on the last trip that I took to Costa Rica is last Sunday before last. I got to sit with my guide and my driver in the bar late at night and watch the election results coming in from the Costa Rican presidential election. And that was a hoot to watch because, especially if I've been through various cities of Costa Rica. They do not have an army. And they abolished their army in the 40s and put all of that money that they would have put into their army into clean water, healthcare, and education. So it is a country a little bit different than what we're going to see in the rest of Latin. I don't know about you, but one of the things that I always look at when I travel to a foreign country is what's the food going to taste like? So we get food now that is divine and wonderful, and especially in some of the boutique hotels where the chefs, such as this one, grow all of their own food on site. So almost everything that we ate at one of the recent hotels was grown on site in the greenhouses. Um, then, we get these wonderful coffee, of course, because that's their specialty in the country. And so the food that we're seeing now in Costa Rica is much more creative and much more innovative, especially in the small hotels, because the locals there are affluent enough that they're staying in these hotels. They want good food. And then the tourism business obviously is bringing in a lot of people who also want equally good food. So don't be afraid of the food, because the food really, really is very good. The water also out of the tap is drinkable. And that's one of their things, is that they've got clean water throughout the country. I love it because that means we don't have to, we can still use bottled water if we feel like it, but that means that we don't have to use bottled water to drink our teeth, to brush our teeth and that type of thing. So the water out of the tap is drinkable. Tourism is a huge part of the Costa Rican economy, and as a result, they know how to do this in Costa Rica. So when we have a van, it always has the Turismo sticker on the back of it. Then you're going to be transported in a vehicle that's got the sticker on it. So they really do understand tourism, and they know how to handle tourists. Okay, so that's kind of the basic stuff out of the way. Now let me take you to the country and show you what the country is like. Costa Rica, if you've never been there, is situated between Nicaragua and Panama on the isthmus, the Central American isthmus. To get there, you would travel. I'm in the Houston area, so that's where the little blue arrow is right there. So from the Houston area, it's a 3.5-hour flight. And a lot of people from the West Coast travel from the West Coast to the Houston or Dallas area and then take a flight straight down to Costa Rica from there. So it's a reasonable flight from the United States. For those of you on the East Coast, most people travel through Miami and then take the flight directly from Miami over to San Jose or Liberia. Some people are starting to go through Orlando and Fort Lauderdale airports in Florida to avoid the Miami airports, but it does give us a different option to go down there. So travel is fairly easy. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of time depending on where you're coming from. And for me as a bird watcher and a bird photographer, the important thing for me about Costa Rica is that there are 903 known species of birds. The United States and Canada have about 800. So Costa Rica has more than the US and Canada put together. And the reason that Costa Rica has so many bird species is because there are a lot of migrants going to the United States and back, and there are a lot of migrants going to South America and back. And so it gets a good crossover of South American species as well as North American species, or what we consider North American species. Most of our birds winter down in Latin America, and so they're not ours. We just have them for the summertime. So it's a great place for doing any sort of bird photography or bird watching. Costa Rica itself is the size of West Virginia. And like West Virginia, Costa Rica is very mountainous. And there are 3 major mountain ranges running through Costa Rica. So you can see them on this map traveling all the way down and up and down through Costa Rica. So it's an incredibly mountainous country, just like West Virginia would be. But if you flatten it, then it has the surface area of Texas. So as my guide, Willie Alfaro, always likes to say, if you ironed Costa Rica, it would be as big as Texas. And if you tried to drive from border to border, the northern border where Liberia is, all the way down to the Panama border, if you were lucky, it would take 7 to 9 hours. And if you tried to drive from Liberia to Limon, east-west or west-east, it would take you about 6 to 8 hours. So one of the things that I encourage you to do if you're going to travel to Costa Rica is not try to see it all at one time. is see bits and pieces of Costa Rica and then think about going back if you can, rather than trying to see everything, because otherwise you're just going to be driving the entire time that you're there. And that's not fun at all, because the roads are good, but not that good. So let me show you some places, favorite places on this map. So the San Jose area, the Savegre Mountain area, and I'm going to take you to each one of these as I go through once I start a little bit more into the program. The area right above San Jose in the Central Highlands, the area up around Sarapiquí, the area around Turrialba, the area, there we go, around the coastline, the area down at the Osa Peninsula, the most remote location, the Guanacaste area, and then way up near the Nicaraguan border, we've got another wonderful area up there, and then down around the Arenal area and the Monteverde area. So if you ask me which are my favorites, there's no way I could tell you one favorite, because each one of these holds a variety of habitats, experiences that make a trip to any one of these areas a great experience. So let me start by offering you just a brief glimpse of the beach environments. So let me show you these. For me, it's kind of hard to photograph nature when you've got to trace by the swimming pool with all the people trying to sunbathe and be quiet and relax. And, here's my group hovering around a palm tree because we had an anteater in the top of the palm tree. So sometimes these type of hotels are not exactly what I'm looking for my group, because we're doing different things than what the regular people are there. But along the coast is a great place to see monkeys and a great place to see toucans, and just a great place to enjoy that beach environment if that's what you like. Going into San Jose is an urban environment. I kind of like 2 days in San Jose as either a beginning or an end of a trip. But there are some beautiful hotels on the outskirts of San Jose. Like my favorite is Bougainvillea, Hotel Bougainvillea. It sits on 10 acres of land that are a manicured garden. So you've got all kinds of plants that are labeled. The food is amazing. The ambiance there is beautiful. It's up in the hills, so it's very refreshing. And a hotel like this could be a base to take other adventure trips out of San Jose without having to change hotels. But just on the grounds of the hotel, rufous-tailed hummingbird, some of you all have done this with me, blue and gray tanager, rufous-naped wren, rufous-collared sparrow. These are all common just on the grounds of the hotel, and crimson-fronted parakeets, of course, flying in and out. So you could you get a nice nature fix in a fairly large hotel, but you wouldn't feel as though you were totally confined with, in the city. So San Jose has some really beautiful hotels on the outskirts that could be nice excursion hotels. So for an example, from San Jose, you could take a day trip up to the Central Highlands. And this would be someplace up near Carrillo. You could even go to the Irazu volcano right over here. So there's some really nice areas right around in this north of San Jose that are only maybe an hour and a half drive away. And there's, you check with the hotel, see what they have to offer. And there's things like the ox cart factory. This is the wheel of an ox cart and is pretty much the symbol of Costa Rican folk art that you'll see all over the country. But there's a place about an hour and a half away from San Jose called La Paz Waterfall Gardens that have 7 waterfalls, so you can do some hiking. Places for the children. There's a butterfly house, a mammal house. There's a snake house so people can look at the snakes. It's not a bad place. Neat thing for me is it has some bird feeders, so we can see some different birds like scarlet rump tanager and violet saberwing and purple-throated mountain gem. The black-bellied hummingbird, this is a favorite of mine. It has a matte finish to its throat and doesn't shine like another hummingbird. It's just that black matte, beautiful finish. There we go. And then green crown brilliants, coppery-headed emeralds. So at La Paz Waterfall Garden, in a couple of hours, you could rack up 8 or 9 species of hummingbird, like the green thorntail, because they have feeders around in the gardens, crowned wood nymph. So interesting things that you could do just within the San Jose area. Now let's stretch a little bit more out of the way. And there's an area up near the Arenal volcano and also Monte. And this is in the low hills of northern Costa Rica. It is a resort area for local Costa Ricans. And so there's a whole lot of infrastructure with hotels, different types of hotels. And you see also a large lake. This area became famous when the Arenal volcano erupted in the 1960s and continued erupting until the early 2000s. I did get a chance to see it erupting for several years on my early trips. So there are hotels built around the edge of the volcano. This is the bottom one is the Arenal Observatory Lodge. This was a place where researchers stayed in this area, and then it gradually started building up into a hotel. And today it's a really, really nice hotel set in gardens once again. So you can photograph birds, explore, hike, that type of thing, all in the shadow of this volcano that's not doing anything right now. It's sleeping right now. But it's a great area, nice temperature, cool, refreshing days, not too cold at night, not too hot during the day, volcano area. And then about an hour and a half south of there is Monteverde. And Monteverde was founded by Quaker conscientious objectors after World War II. They came from Alabama, and they wanted to find a place where they wouldn't have to worry about war again. So they founded, they settled in the community of Monteverde and started doing, raising cows, and eventually developed a cheese factory, which became very famous. And now their ice cream is to die for. Absolutely amazing. So this is a more mountainous area. The mountains are a little bit higher than what they were down in Arenal. Once again, hotels around there, but most of them are family-owned hotels. There's not any of the big chain hotels up in Monteverde. But there are reasons for going there for us bird watchers. The resplendent quetzal, for instance, is there. So you can see it down in Savegre, which I'll tell you about in a little bit, but you can also see it up in Monteverde. And here's me a couple of days ago at the Curicancha Reserve. There are all kinds of forested reserves in the Monteverde area. So you kind of pick one that you like. They all have guides. You reserve your time. A guide takes you and walks with you the entire time if you would like. And so it's nice if you're going by yourself or you're going with a family group, you have somebody who knows the birds, knows what the habitat is. Our guide early in the morning knew exactly where the two-toed sloth was sleeping. So it's nice to have that firsthand knowledge so that you don't have to just kind of bumble around or follow the guidebook. You know, all you've got to do is hire one of the young guides, and they know where everything is. So it's fun. So that was the Monteverde area right here. And then if you go just a little bit north, this is where we start getting into the Upala area or the Celeste area. And the Celeste is famous for its blue waterfalls and its blue rivers. I will warn you, don't go there during the rainy season because the river is brown during the rainy season. It is not turquoise. So if you go in June, July, and August and September, that's the rainy season, then chances are the river's going to be brown. But this beautiful turquoise river is formed by the minerals reflecting light the minerals are coming out of the volcano. And it's a lovely place. And there are hotels around these turquoise rivers and these turquoise waterfalls. There's a national park up there. Once again, the altitude and the hills make it a refreshing place. Just absolutely lovely place, in my opinion. It's been one of my favorite in the last couple of years to go to. It's got great birds up in that area. So barred ant shrike, for instance, social flycatcher, the good old silver-throated tanager and blue-gray tanager that we see everywhere. And then just a little bit north of the Celeste area, by day trip. So you could take a transport up to Caño Negro. And at Caño Negro Reserve is low down by the Nicaraguan border. And it's a huge wetland. And it covers a vast amount of territory. This means that it attracts a lot of birds. It also attracts a lot of fishermen to go up there and fish. It's supposedly really good fishing. And there are these little bitty boats that you can contract with and hire, and they take you out into the marsh, just puttering along in the marsh, which gives you a great opportunity to photograph out of the boat. And, great egret with a mud turtle, monkeys all around, kingfishers everywhere. So I really like this Caño Negro. It's a little bit on the hot side, but if you want to see a lot of wildlife from a very comfortable vantage point, it really is a lot of fun. And they have the bigger boats and they have the smaller boats. So you just kind of choose whether you want a small boat or whether you want one of the bigger boats. So leaving the Caño Negro area up in here, I'm going to take you over to Sarapiquí. And once again, a lot of you all that have traveled with me have been to Sarapiquí. And it's another tourist destination for locals in Costa Rica. And the reason that it's a tourist destination is it's lowland forest. So this is wet rainforest in the lowlands. And so there are these different reserves that you can walk through. Once again, you can hire a guide once you get there for a bird watching guide or a hiking guide. You look out over these beautiful rivers through the jungle and you see this, these beautiful still waters. Get on one of those rivers on a small little boat cruise. Once again, you can small boats, big boats. Book it just for yourself or just for your family if that's what you want to do. And this is once again where you can see iguanas and monkeys and kingfishers and all kinds of different wildlife, caimans, crocodiles. So a really interesting place. In this same Sarapiquí area, there is whitewater rafting and there is zip lining and all of the other adventure type activities that a family might enjoy. But you look out over that forest and it's dense, it's thick, and it's full of wildlife and really lets you feel that you're in the tropics. Hotels in this area, there are big hotels, and then there are also small hotels. And one of my favorite hotels right now is the La Quinta in Sarapiquí, small little resort, not real big, family owned. And I love this chalkboard that was in their lobby, the quick little Spanish lesson in 10 seconds in Costa Rica. Everybody says pura vida all the time. And so to say hi, you say pura vida. To say how are you, you say pura vida. To say I'm fine, you say pura vida. To say yes, you say pura vida. To say bye, you say pura vida. Just, a little bit of Costa Rican humor there. But this is a really neat little hotel stuck back in the woods. It's been in the family for about 25 years. And I personally like patronizing these small hotels that are owned by locals, because that means we're supporting the local economy. And of course, all the beautiful birds that are in Sarapiquí area, the blue-gray tanagers, the palm tanagers, the crested guans, the great curassow, chestnut colored woodpecker. It depends on how deep you're going to go into the jungle, what kind of birds you're going to ultimately find. But it's a good region for going up and exploring birds. Hot, Humid, yeah. But definitely worth going up to the Sarapiquí region. And also in Sarapiquí, there are several frog houses and reptile houses so that you can go in for us photographers, photograph the poison dart frogs like this green and black. You can go in and photograph these for the kids. If you're traveling with friends or family, they get a chance to see them. And this is your chance to see the red-eyed tree frog in a much more controlled environment so that we can get photos of it. And then, of course, always the monkeys, just incredibly loud every single morning. So this is a good area for monkeys as well, and sloths. So a good area for sloths and seeing what sloths are doing. So just a little bit more of the hummingbirds that you can get in this area. And then the birds you can get in this area. So Sarapiquí is definitely a worthwhile destination. And then leaving the Sarapiquí area, we're going to go just a little bit over toward the Caribbean coast to a place called Turrialba. And Turrialba, once again, it's a local tourist destination for Costa Ricans, whitewater rafting, rappelling, or zip lining. It's as in hiking and horseback riding. It's also a refreshing altitude. So the breezes are nice. The humidity is not too high. The heat during the day is not too bad. And it is an absolutely beautiful place in the Turrialba area. Our hotel in that area, that's the only one that I really like to go to, is called Rancho Naturalista. It's been around since the early 1990s, founded by a couple from Berkeley, California. And it's now being run by their daughter. It's a bird lodge. So when you go there, that's what it is. It's a bird watching lodge. But it's really nice in the mornings to come up on this second floor. You see the coffee pot is out there. And those of you who've been there with me know about the coffee pot and the cookies that they put out. And when the birds start coming alive at 5:30 in the morning, this is the place to be. And they have feeders around the area so that you can photograph birds coming to natural perches and attracted by the fruit at the feeders. But here's their famous bird is the snow-capped hummingbird, one of the few places in Costa Rica that you can get this little tiny jewel of a hummingbird. It's only about 1.5 inches long. It's purple with a white head. My husband says it looks like the hummingbird was dipped in Merlot. And that is what color it is the color of Merlot wine. And then rufous-tailed hummingbirds, black-crested coquette coming to the porterweed. Anytime in Costa Rica that you see this porterweed, this is where you go for finding hummingbirds, because all the hummingbirds love this porterweed. And as a photographer, it means that they're going to visit each one of those flowers, which means that the hummingbird's going to stay on that porterweed branch for several seconds, giving us time that we can take a picture of it. Green hermit. There's flowers all over the garden at Rancho Naturalista that attract hummingbirds and birds. So you know you're in a wonderful environment. Bronzy hermit, green-breasted mango. So lots of different opportunities for birds at this hotel, violet-headed hummingbird. And of course, social flycatcher, little guy, always around. So let me take you from Turrialba down to another one of those star places, another one of those places that most time on your first visit you want to go to, if not return there on other visits. And that's the Savegre and Talamanca mountain area. The Talamanca Mountains, this mountain ridge right down here in the southern part of Costa Rica, is the highest part of Costa Rica. Some of the mountains go as high as 13,000 feet. And the Talamanca Mountains, when we crest them to go down into the valley, the Savegre Valley, we're at about 11,000 feet. And then the Savegre Valley goes down to about 7,000 feet. I'm affected by altitude. My brain doesn't handle altitude well. And so this is a place where I have to kind of acclimatize because it is so high. You need to wear a fleece. You need to wear your puffy jacket because it is cold at night, not snowing, but it's cold at night in this area. But then this area also has scenery and birds that we don't have anywhere else in Costa Rica. So the Segebre River running through the valley is famous for trout fishing. A lot of anglers from around the world come here to fish. It's beautiful to photograph. My favorite hotel in this area is Trogan Lodge. We've been staying there since our very first trip to Costa Rica years ago. Many of you all stayed at Trogan with us. It has magnificent gardens and lots of hummingbird plants. So meaning that the birds are on site, the hummingbirds are on site. And sometimes we just do a full day at the gardens of Trogan so that people can just relax, acclimatize to the altitude, and enjoy the birds in a nice, convenient setting. Very alpine feel to it. Here's another example of the Trogan Lodge. And the cabins have heat in them, so they're nice and warm. So it's a lovely place to stay. And people go there for the quetzal. The Segebre Valley is famous for getting the quetzal, or possibly getting the quetzal. This is a bird that you go start trying to find from November through March, when it's starting to nest or going to nest. And then other than that, you're not going to see it. The male has these beautiful long plumes. One trip, unfortunately, the only thing we saw was the plume sticking out of the nest hole. We never saw the bird itself, just the tail feathers sticking out of the nest hole. Other trips, we've seen it a fairly good amount. But other birds that you might find in this alpine area, yellow-thighed finch, fiery-throated hummingbird. This used to be very unusual and it's becoming much more common with that beautiful throat pattern that it has. Scintillant hummingbird with its orange throat pattern, volcano hummingbird, small 1.5-inch long hummingbird with its gray throat, green violet ear, beautiful hummingbird. And then the Talamanca hummingbird used to be called the magnificent hummingbird, but it was split from that magnificent hummingbird that we had here in the United States, magnificent in its own right. And then they have the acorn woodpecker that was separated from the United States by the last ice age. So they have a remnant population down there of the acorn woodpecker that we see in the Western United States, white-throated mountain gem. So great place, Segebre Mountain or Segebre Valley. So the Segebre Valley is right down in this area. And now I'm going to take you up here to the Guanacaste area, kind of a new favorite of mine. Hot and dry. Notice on the map that there's a lot of yellow up there. The Guanacaste area is dry. It's not wet, drippy rainforest or cloud forest. It's dry, which gives you a whole different types of habitat. So in that Guanacaste area, we have a lot of cattle farms and a lot of ranches, but we also have the Gulf of Nicoya that creates this beautiful inland bay around the Guanacaste area. Several hotels scattered around there, not away from the beach, so that we're not so in the mainstream of the people going to the beach resorts. But there's several little quiet boutique hotels scattered around the Gulf of Nicoya. And this is where you would get your cinnamon hummingbird, your white-throated magpie jay. If you're not careful, he'll steal the toast off your breakfast platter. Beautiful bird, really big. And nice to photograph. Orange-chin parrots. And neat thing about Guanacaste, it's so open that we get some beautiful sunsets and get to play around with the sunset at night from overlooks, or in the evening for overlooks. But the area around the Rincon Viejo volcano, which has erupted twice within the last year, is this tall grassland. And very dry and really, really warm, which gives us just a different environment when we're visiting Costa Rica than what we've had in some of the other places. Cecropia trees, of course. And this is a great place to see the keel-billed toucan. So, different birds once again, but just a great place to see things like the keel-billed toucan. And then the last place that I'm going to take you on our adventure tonight is down to the Osa Peninsula. And some of you, like Hope, went to the Osa Peninsula with us in years past. To get to Osa, you take a small plane from San Jose down to Osa. Otherwise, you drive. And if you drive, it takes you about 8 hours to get there. It's one of the most remote locations in Costa Rica because most people do end up flying there. And it's really, really warm and really, really humid. But then there are species down there that we're not going to see anywhere else. And there's things down there that we can do that we're not going to do anywhere else. So in the Osa Peninsula, for instance, your scarlet macaws might end up waking you up in the morning, making all kinds of racket. And when a flock of scarlet macaws comes in and starts eating the palm seeds, you know that there's a flock of scarlet macaws because they do make a lot of noise. Same thing with the monkeys. There's several species of monkeys down there. This is a white-faced capuchin monkey. So it's common down in the Osa Peninsula to see the monkeys. Sunsets, of course, are magnificent because you're way out over the Pacific Ocean. It's really isolated, so there doesn't turn out to be any air pollution or anything like that. So a very fresh environment. But, it is hot. And that means that during the middle of the day, you're going to do like the monkeys and just take a siesta, find yourself a hammock somewhere and wait it out till it cools off just a little bit. This is a place where we stay, Bosque de Cabo, or we've stayed, Bosque de Cabo. You notice that it's got thatched roofs and swimming pool and that type of thing. It was a comfortable lodge. Even though I spent most of my time in short sleeves and short pants because it's pretty warm and it's pretty muggy, but there's always something going on in terms of nature down in the Osa Peninsula. And again, one of those really isolated places still left on this earth. Blue-capped manakin in the forest. This is a little round bird. So when you see the little round bird perched on the branch, it's usually a manakin. And so of all these places that I've given you, somebody would ask me, well, what's your favorite place? And I can't really tell you what is my favorite place because my mood changes and my desires change for what I want to see. And when you go to Costa Rica, and I hope you do go to Costa Rica, I hope you would consider the idea of just hitting a few ecosystems instead of trying to cover the entire thing. If you cover the entire thing, you're going to end up spending all your time in the van or, in driving, which is one way to see Costa Rica, but it really is better to get out and actually experience it. So all kinds of stuff to see. And definitely, if you're going to go, just make sure you don't bite off too much. Otherwise, you might find yourself hanging off the stem like this little guy and being totally exhausted instead of just enjoying